Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Gwenna. Today we are going to make a sourdough loaf. Look at that. It's so good. I like big holes in mine. So to me, this is great. I know that people can get kind of crazy. I don't want to say crazy, particular about what the crumb looks like. This is just a recipe that works really good for me. There's a million different recipes out there and some really great teachers. I'm not a sourdough expert by any means, but this is how I make mine, and I thought I would share it because it's kind of an easy, foolproof recipe to get a nice loaf. So let's get started. This is my recipe, and I will put it in the description box below. I found this, somebody on Facebook. I don't know. I don't even know who or when, but it works really good. So I do use a scale for this recipe. Now I have made sourdough without a scale. You don't need to have a scale, but I've just found that I get like the best result if I actually do use a scale. And I'm one of those people that I only really use a scale for like making macarons and a couple of other, and making soap. But anyway, so for this recipe, we are going to need 165 grams of starter. Now I did feed this yesterday. It's not at peak. It's okay. It's going to work. Trust me. So for those of you that are kind of stressed out and you're like, oh my God, I waited too long and then it went down, just try it and see if it works. It should. So I'm going to do 165 grams of my starter. And the reason why you can do this, like as long as your starter is somewhat active, the flour that we're going to put in there is going to feed it. So it's going to be fine. And it's okay if you go a gram or two over. You're literally going to be fine. Don't stress. And then we're going to do 400 grams of water. I just use like lukewarm tap water. You don't need to use any kind of special water either. You don't want to use like super hot because it would kill your yeast, and you don't, and you can use cold, it just makes it slower. So the process takes a little bit longer, but you definitely don't want to use like hot water. And I went a little over again. That's okay. So for this part, I just mix the two together, and here, let me move you up so you can see a little better. See if you can see a little better. So I'm just going to keep this on the scale because I've got to add some more, obviously flour and salt. So a basic sourdough loaf is just your starter, flour, water, and salt. Super easy. And this is a great like economical way to make food. Okay, so now we're going to add our flour. And so we need 650 grams of bread flour. Now this makes a pretty good size single loaf, or you could split it and make two smaller ones. Totally would be able to split it for sure, because it is going to make a good sized loaf. And then we're going to add 15 grams of salt. Use whatever kind of salt you like. Okay. So now we're just going to stir all this up. And after we get this stirred, we are going to we're going to cover it with either cling wrap or whatever you want to cover it with. Just cover it up so it doesn't dry out. And we're going to let it rest for an hour before we start doing our stretch and fold. And then we're going to do stretch and folds every half an hour for like 4 rounds. And then we're going to let it sit out for several hours. And then we'll shape and put it in the fridge overnight. Now I am kind of making this later in the day, but I should still be able to get this where I need it to be. And I don't have any fancy sourdough equipment. You really don't need any. Making your own starter is easy. It is like taking care of a plant or a pet, you know, you have to feed it and take care of it and don't let it die. You know, kind of like yourself. So you can definitely make one on your own. I've always made my own. You can buy them. If you know anybody that makes sourdough, they'll almost always give you some starter. Like most people are like, let me share, because they love it and they just want to share. So once we get this good and incorporated, we're going to cover and let it rest for 1 hour. And if you don't have any cling wrap, you can use a plate. You could use your cutting board. You could, you know, stick a cookie sheet over it, whatever you have just to cover. And then now we're going to set a timer for 1 hour, and then we'll come back to do our first set of stretch and folds. All right, so we're going to get our hands wet to do our first set of stretch and folds. So you're just going to come in here and kind of, just kind of pick it up a little bit, but we're going to stretch and fold. Pick it up and stretch and fold. And stretch and fold. Stretch and fold. So you can already see our dough is starting to come together after sitting for just an hour. So we're going to do that 3 more times. And so we're going to set a timer because we're going to give it a half an hour of rest. Stretch and fold it, 30 minutes of rest, stretch and fold, 30 minutes of rest, and then we'll do our ferment. All right, so we are going to do another set of stretch and fold since it's been 30 minutes. Oh, see, there my timer is going off. And so I wet my hands again because that'll help you handle this dough. So we're just stretching and folding. I always do this. I don't know why. I think I just like the way it looks. I just kind of work it around. Not that it's necessary or anything, but I like to see how pretty the dough starts looking as it's sitting. Okay, so we're going to cover that back up, and we are going to go do that 2 more times before we let this do its bulk ferment. All right, guys, good morning. It is the next day. And this is our dough that sat out all night, our sourdough. So I'm just going to peel this off of there. Very sticky. I'm not going to mess around worrying about that. So I'm going to throw a little bit of flour down on here. Put our dough there. We're just gonna kind of take this out into a rectangle. I am gonna put cheese in this loaf because the one I made the other day was a plain one, and I want bold. So you don't have to get all crazy with it. It doesn't need to be perfect. I just kind of do mine like that. I'm gonna go to shape. Kind of got a thin spot right there, but that's okay. And I'm just gonna sprinkle some cheese. You can use whatever kind of cheese you want. So on this layer, I'm just gonna sprinkle some, because this will give us like cheese throughout the loaf, kind of sprinkling it on like this. And I'm gonna go over, and I'm gonna sprinkle more. I'm gonna kind of push them in there to this section, and I'm gonna pull this one over. I'm gonna put the rest here. And then we're just gonna roll it up. So to shape it, you just wanna create some tension on it, and I'm gonna get a little bit more flour because we got a couple sticky spots. Again, this doesn't have to be perfect. You can just do whatever you want to create your tension on the top. You can see it's very nice and round. So I don't have like a sourdough banneton or banneton, whatever they're called. I just use a bowl. It's a kind of a medium-sized bowl. So if you just find one that's close to kind of your dough ball size, that will work. And then I'm just going to take a light kitchen towel, tea towel, and I'm going to pop that in there, and it's clean. You want to use a clean one, obviously. Make sure there's no hairs stuck to it from the washing machine. And then I take and sprinkle flour just so that it doesn't stick. I'm going to use a little bit of this, and I really flour the outside. Because sometimes if you have like a really moist spot, it will, you know, when I pulled off the cling wrap and it kind of stuck, it'll do that and it'll rip your loaf when you go to bake it. So this is now going to go sit in the refrigerator, and you can kind of stitch the bottom if it's falling apart. It just means to kind of like smush it together. You don't really have to, but you can. And then we're going to let this sit in the fridge. I'm going to put it in the fridge this morning before I go to work. And then when I get home, I will bake this. But you could do this like and let it sit overnight. I got a little too much flour on there. Doesn't want to like pinch together. And so then I just kind of sprinkle a little bit more on here, and I'm just going to throw my towel around it. And this is going to go sit in the fridge for either a few hours or overnight, whatever you want to do. This is going to sit in the fridge till this afternoon, and then I will bring you guys back and we will go ahead and bake our cheesy sourdough loaf. So I'll see you guys here in a little bit. All right, guys, so it is the evening. I am off work, and we are going to get our sourdough loaf put into the oven. So with the way I cook this recipe, we are not going to preheat the oven or our Dutch oven. I know it sounds crazy because everybody always preheats it. We're not going to do it. And I promise you, this is, for me, with my oven and the issues I was having, the best way I've found to cook it. If I'm using the Dutch oven, I want to get one of those like open, like the stone or whatever. Again, I don't have any fancy equipment. I'm just going to use a razor blade to make some design in here. And I'm just going to do like the whole wheat stock thingy, not like whole wheat, but you know, like how people do that. I'm not all like super good at that yet. It probably helps if you have like the better equipment to do all that. I do not. So then we have this board. We're going to put it in our Dutch oven that is not preheated. Like so. And then I throw some ice cubes like in between. So not right directly on the bread, but put some moisture in there. And then we're going to cover this up, and we're going to do 1 hour at 450 degrees. And then at the 1 hour mark, we will take the lid off and do an additional 10 to 15 minutes to brown it up. So I will bring you back when we go to do that. All right, guys, so we're going to turn our oven down to 425, and we are going to take the lid off of our Dutch oven. So it's going to be very hot. Make sure you have mittens on. We'll set that up, but that is what it looks like right now. So now we're just going to push this back in and let this get a little dark for about 10-15 minutes. All right, let's go ahead and pull this out and see where we're at. I think we look pretty good. Here, let's move. We're gonna move this back. Very hot. You don't want to cut into this yet. But I will like try to pull it out of here, maybe. Very hot. Okay, so here's our beautiful loaf. Again, there's the bottom. It is dark but not burnt. So this is the cheese loaf, and here is just a plain one I made the other day. So you can see it's nice and squishy. It's not doughy, very edible, and quite nice. So hopefully this video was helpful. If it was, leave a comment down below, or if you've got any tips, tricks, or if you're a sourdough guru or a noob. Anyways, have a good day. Bye-bye.